Welcome into another episode of the Drum Candy Podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, the Chief Creative Officer for Drum Factory Direct. This week's episode is 10 Reasons to Love Steve Jordan. This is the second of two episodes that we filmed over at Hawthorne Drum Shop. I just realized I forgot to mention that in last week's episode, so if there are any moments when I was talking to an imaginary audience and it might have weirded you out, that's why, because we did film these live in front of an audience over at Hawthorne. So special thanks to Chris and the crew for allowing us to host these over there. And I have Tom and Dave at the shop, and we are sharing 10 of our favorite picks from the great producer, drummer, composer, band leader, Steve Jordan. Steve Jordan was born in January of 1957, and he is currently the drummer in the Rolling Stones. Steve Jordan's credits could go all day. We could spend hours just talking about his entire career. It started in the late 70s, and probably most people saw him for the first time as the original drummer on Saturday Night Live, and then he was also the original drummer on Late Night with David Letterman. He made some classic records with the fusion group Eyewitness. He was also a member of Keith Richards' Expensive Winos band, and he was in the Blues Brothers. He did that tour and that album. A few albums, and then fast forwarding a few decades, he was the drummer producer for John Mayer on a few of his seminal records. He was in the John Mayer Trio. He's played on hundreds of hit records, Sheryl Crow, Alicia Keys, John Mellencamp, just go down the line. Steve Jordan's probably been involved with that artist at some point. So in this episode, Tom, Dave, and I try to hit some key points throughout Steve's career to highlight kind of where he started, his influences, how he got going in the New York scene, some surprises in there. Some of my favorite music of all time features Steve. And so let's get to it. 10 Reasons to Love, Steve Jordan.
Steve Jordan is our topic of discussion. As I was digging into his history, he's been making very important records, which is what started my little soapbox, since he was 18 years old. And he's continued to make them until today.
I think his first record was in 75, I think. He was born in
He had to be
57,
young.
I think.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
What year did you say he was born?
57, I believe.
Okay.
And he's from New York. He went to the LaGuardia High School for the Performing Arts. He was in school with Omar Hakim and Bela Fleck, Kenny Washington. He was in school with some really great musicians.
I didn't know Bela went there.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Wow.
And he tells that he started out as a classical percussionist playing timpani and symphony. The urban legend, I guess is true, is there was a bad snowstorm around 1977, and Gad couldn't get to town, so they called Steve, and that's what got him into the studio scene.
Wow.
Just being there and being able to literally walk to the studio in a snowstorm.
Interesting.
He started playing jingles every day, then he got TV gigs and tours. And
that's back when those things existed.
Right, right. So pretty amazing. I mean, obviously he had the skill and the talent, but just also the opportunity and just being there.
Yeah.
And now you get to be on Instagram. That's another story we'll talk about later. Not that I have any experience. Continue.
So I'm going to start with one of my picks because I wanted to go. For me personally, I could pick anything from his entire career, and I kind of love all of it. I don't necessarily love the music, but the drumming, he just makes everything sound cool and timeless. But this was like his first major record. It was a Patty Austin record, Havana Candy, 1977. Let me cue it up. And he's talked about this many times, how he was a huge Steve Gadd fan, huge Harvey Mason fan, and a huge David Garibaldi fan. And he says this was him just trying to sound like his heroes. You can hear it, the drum sound, the way he's playing, but it still has something a little bit cooler about it. So here it is.
I don't really care. Maybe you see the forest for the trees, babe. And maybe you see the things that I don't dare. Whatever it is, we're together and that's enough for me. Don't need no questions or answers, your love's enough, you see. Whatever it is, we're together and that's how love should be. Don't need nobody to tell me your love's enough for me.
Yeah, man.
It's just so cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
killing.
that's great, man. What a great record that is.
And I think he was 18 when they recorded that. Just had that maturity to just know when to just do tiny little things.
Totally.
Open hi-hats, little bit of grace notes. He's not doing grace notes out the wazoo like we all tend to do. I just love it. Totally different sound. Like he evolved quickly, I think. What is our second pick here? Don Pullen.
Oh, well, this is going to be a bit different. Of course, I had to choose stuff that's that's earlier, and he did play some jazz music, and he played it really well. If you're not familiar with Don Pullen's a very, very unique and wonderful pianist. He played in Charles Mingus's very last band. He also had a wonderful group in the 80s with the tenor saxophonist George Adams. And this is from a live record from the Montreux Jazz Festival. And there's two tunes on the record, one on the first side and one on the second side. And we're going to hear the one on the second side. I almost played the one on the first side because it's just kind of like a jazz waltz, actually. He sounds really good on it. This is a little bit more interesting. This is a tune called In Conversation with Malcolm and Betty, referencing Malcolm X and his wife Betty Shabazz. And it's a very interesting, it's like a 25-minute tune. We're going to hear, this is kind of towards the end, I think, right?
Yeah, I've got 33 minutes, 45 seconds in.
Yeah.
So this was just the concert they just played straight down? Is that what it was?
Well, I mean, I think they probably played some more music than this, but they could only fit two tunes on the record.
Amazing.
The record company probably didn't want to pay for a double LP. So that's probably why it was a single LP if I had to cast my...
This is 1978. You said he was born in...
57, so he was like 2021 on
Yes,
this.
still a young man.
Yeah. This is a very interesting... This is a totally different side of him than what most people know of Steve Jordan. That's kind of why I chose it. So.
All right, here we go. That is a young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because he's obviously not intimidated by that situation musically, and Don Pullen was a pianist that could go in a lot of different directions. So to be that young and be on a gig like that I think that says a lot about his musicality and his ability to just sort of deal with any of these situations. Plus it's just interesting.
I've never heard that before.
Me either.
If you listen to the first side, the first tune is sort of like a jazz waltz, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of Lenny White a little bit when he plays.
That makes sense.
I think he plays really well on the record, so I thought it would be an interesting thing to include that.
This would have been around the time that he was doing TV, right? Saturday Night Live. When was season 1 Saturday Night Live?
That's a good question. I don't know.
79?
I'm not sure.
I
Anyone
don't know. I don't.
It would have been around that time, or the Blues Brothers, all that stuff.
Yep.
And I know he's kind of talked bad about his own playing during that era,
Yeah, I've heard him be critical of himself.
about just overplaying. But I think that's what being young is all
Yeah,
about.
when you're young. Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there might be instances of him doing that, but I don't think he overplays really at all. I mean, even in that where it was really active, I mean, he was just responding to the situation. I don't think it was overplaying.
He did say once that he used to be known for his right foot, but then he tore his ACL and never got it fixed. So
really?
Really?
Then he just became a simple player after that. Literally, that was what he said.
I never heard
I
that.
just started playing simply because I tore my ACL. I mean,
Oh, that's crazy.
it happens. Our third track is Jackie McLean on the Slick Side. That's another one of your picks off the record Monuments.
This is an interesting record, but again, I chose this because I knew it was probably going to be different from stuff that you were going to choose. Plus, it's very interesting to hear him play this music. This is nothing like any other Jackie McLean record. If you're familiar with Jackie McLean and his career, this is not like any other record he did. This was sort of like his attempt at like fusion or more funky stuff. It's not a bad record, but it's very interesting. So
Yeah, when I previewed this, I was like totally surprised.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So this is the tune On the Slick Side
on the Slick Side,
by Jackie McLean, 2 minutes and 35 seconds in, something like that.
that sounds about right. I hear a lot of Steve Gadd in that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you
but
can
he
hear
sounds
Stephen
great
Harvey,
though,
yeah,
man. Yeah. It's a very interesting record.
Yeah, I've never heard that record either.
Is the whole record like that?
Kind of. It's there's a lot of musicians on it. I think Jeff Berlin is on it. Hiram Bullock. There's some really great players from that era that are on it. It's an interesting record, and I think he plays great on it.
Those two very, like, those make sense. Those are your picks. We are who we are.
I'm sure your picks are going to make sense
Oh,
like that
no,
too.
completely. It's not a rib. It's like,
No,
it's cool.
no.
And like I know a lot of these records, but like I don't know those two records, so it's like it's cool to hear them.
Well, the other thing about Steve is that we were talking about how versatile Bill was.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Same.
also incredibly versatile, man.
Super.
And when I started, I mean, I know a little bit about Steve Jordan, but I don't know as much about him as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started digging into his discography, it was like, wow. Like, I mean, he really, he made records with it. He's on a Don Cherry record from the 70s, which is very interesting. I almost chose that. He made a lot of, a very wide, much wider than I thought.
Yeah.
He's played with almost every legendary artist you can think of.
So many.
Of his lifetime.
Yeah.
It's like go down the list. I forgot about Alicia Keys, like the newer stuff.
Yeah.
Did.
Yep.
So much stuff.
Yep.
Did you get that record because it was a Jackie McLean record, or did you get it because you wanted to check out Steve Jordan with Jackie
I
McLean?
got it because of Jackie McLean record. Man.
Tom has every Jackie McLean record.
But I was very intrigued that he was on it. When I saw it, I was like, whoa, this is interesting. Let me check this out.
That is a wild one. That sounds like the late night.
Oh, it's total
sound.
1978.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
That's the year I was born, so.
But you know what? Like that Patty Austin thing and that, like, these musicians are great musicians back then.
They're incredible,
Like,
man.
I almost said when you played the Patty Austin thing, I was like, wow, music used to be really good.
Well, you know what?
But like,
back-
it sounds super dark, but like,
No,
just
no.
some regular run-of-the-mill R&B pop record, like the musicianship is killing.
It had
you
to
know?
be back then.
Yeah.
Pro Tools and Melodyne and all that did not exist. Like,
Yeah.
you had to actually do it, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's
Real strings.
real strings.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Those were all humans getting paid to play
Yeah,
that
it's
music.
unbelievable.
Which is, it's really something.
And they
Yeah.
probably spent more time, like that Patty Austin record, they probably spent, instead of just like do a couple takes, they probably really crafted it, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's what I would love to ask about. Because, I mean, it would be one thing if they rehearsed and they really sort of crafted it. It's still great. But if they went in there and they played through that a few times and talked about it and then did that, that's like, woo.
Yeah.
That's serious
Yeah.
musicianship.
Who knows?
Very interesting.
Throck, we got your first pick, Steve Kahn, Casa Loco. The title track, Casa Loco,
As we were saying.
from 1984. This is prime fusion
This is-
era.
Yeah, so this band, I've talked about this band a lot in the other pods we've done covering 20 some other drummers. There's some great recordings of Steve Kahn we've talked about Dave Weckl playing with Steve Kahn. We've talked about Al Foster playing with Steve Kahn. We've talked about Dennis Chambers playing with Steve Kahn. And there's been a ton of other great drummers that play with him. Gad's on some records. This band was called Eyewitness, which is Anthony Jackson on bass, Manolo Badrena on percussion, Steve Kahn on guitar, and originally Steve Jordan on drums.
He was the first.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I found out about the older records through a record they made in right around 90, like 89, 90, 91, somewhere around there. They made a record with Weckl on drums called Public Access.
Yeah.
And then in hearing about that record, I started to realize that this was a band prior to that.
Interesting.
And the band hadn't done anything for six years or something like that, or 7
Wow.
years.
That long between
Yeah.
records?
So they made a live record that came out in Japan and in the States with two different titles. Same record with two different titles. It was called
I hate when they do
called
that.
Blades. It was also called Modern Times.
Wow.
It's a live record from Japan. Then they made a studio record called Eyewitness,
Yeah.
which is probably my favorite of the three.
Yeah.
And then this is the next one, the third one, called
Yeah.
Casa Loco. I've said this before, like, especially this record of the three, I could be totally wrong. I've said this before. It sounds like they're influenced by the Police to me, which sounds, I could be totally
It's 1984.
crazy, but it feels like there's some of that influence in
Biggest
this music.
band in the world, yeah.
So
Totally.
we're gonna hear this
possible.
drum solo he plays, which is like he wasn't soloing a lot in this band, and he's not really known for that.
No, he's not.
But the stuff he plays on this is absolutely ridiculous. It's so good I can't even believe it. you know, and it's that sound coming out, like it's coming out of GAD still, but it's like, you know, it sounds like recording customs with pinstripes or something like that, or Emperors, but who knows what it is. They're tuned a little high, the toms. He's hitting hard, but there's all this touch and beautiful dynamics and space. It's crazy, like, and I don't know. It probably would sound dated to some people. To me, it almost doesn't even sound dated. It just sounds like really high level playing, and like as good as anybody else playing this kind of music at the time.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a key trait of Steve is he always makes things sound timeless.
Yeah.
Even when it was made in the era when everything sounded.
it's so. It's
Oh, you're
so
right. You're
great.
totally right.
Everything he's done has sounded timeless. All right, here we go.
This is a little long solo, but check it out.
It's like 3:20 into the track, Casa Loco.
I'm not sure if that's right.
Yeah. Describe that. It's like he's able to, it's just great. He doesn't let chops ever become a thing, like even when he's playing licks.
Yeah, but he has like real vocabulary. Like he's got
totally
real like we talked about in the Bill Stewart one. We just recorded that a couple minutes ago. Like just like the command of time.
Totally.
And like I talk about this all the time. The pushing and pulling factor, this elasticity he has, and the use of space. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Like I wonder. I was such a big Weckel guy. Like coming up, I wonder if he heard this stuff. He probably did. Like he probably knew about this stuff, and I know he obviously comes out of GAD like Dave does, and so does Steve Jordan to some degree. But like this kind of playing.
Totally.
But it sounds like, I'm sure Dave had to have heard this before he made that record with the band, because it sounds like really connected to that, to this.
I agree.
You know,
100%.
Anyway, I couldn't love it anymore.
You know what's really great about his playing is that, like, it seems like, I mean, different styles, require a different touch that we all need. And it's like he's got a tool belt with all these different touches that he can just pull out, and use in the correct setting for the music, which is, man, that's a hell of a skill to have, to have all of that at your disposal.
Yeah, this is a way more sharp and
totally
choppy kind of
yeah,
sound.
man, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great.
And the sound, the sound
Yeah.
is killing.
Great sound,
the drum
man.
sounds amazing.
Yeah,
That second snare drum when it comes in.
Yeah, it's weird.
What the hell
Yeah.
is that?
and that was also probably the best use of a splash cymbal I think I could have ever. Because usually those are
Man,
egregiously.
I mean, it could have been like a small.
Yeah, it
crash.
might
Like,
have been a small.
that little crash you was playing on that. One of the ones I think it was the Don Pullen. Like
Yeah.
that tiny crash he was playing.
Yeah, it might,
Probably the same cymbal.
It
you know what I
might
mean?
have been. Yeah,
There's
very,
there's-
very, very well used though.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any photography or footage of this band, unfortunately, that I've seen.
I haven't
That's
really either.
interesting.
I mean, there's a boot on YouTube I've heard of, like some other live stuff. It
Just
could be from
audio,
this-
though?
It could be, yeah. It could be from the same sessions as the Blades record, but I'm not sure. But it's really cool.
Because he had talked about he invented some sort of double hi-hat.
Yeah, there was a photo that I never knew what it was.
Like it would go, one would close and one would open,
Wow,
that he
Yeah.
developed for this band.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know how it works, but I've seen pictures of that.
Wow.
You can
I've
see it
not
on one of
seen
the Eyewitness records.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
like this bar that connects the two hi-hats. I don't know how it works.
And
And I know he talked
made
about,
it?
he went through a
Yeah, he made
period where he didn't want to play the hi-hat. You ever hear him talk
Yeah,
about that?
that's what we're getting to next.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
So good transition. So the next tune is Neil Young's off of Neil Young record Landing on Water, the track Violent
What
Side,
year is this?
1986.
Okay.
So 2 years after that Steve Kahn record.
I definitely do not own this record.
This was like peak new wave, everyone's trying to sound like Peter Gabriel kind of era.
yeah.
And this is when Steve said he just got sick of hi-hats, didn't want to hear a hi-hat, didn't want to play a hi-hat. So I don't think he plays a hi-hat on the whole record. Maybe it's mostly
On a Neil
toms.
Young record?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a weird record.
I don't know it.
So on this particular tune, I stole the idea of keeping time on small toms. He's using like octobans.
Oh yeah.
So he's playing like melodic kind of stuff
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
with his right hand, and it's just so integral to the record.
to the tune, the record.
So this is a weird one. I love this record so much. It's so strange.
Here comes the night. Here comes the anger. Getting so deep inside, no one can see. Behind these eyes, there walks a stranger, wandering through the dark, following me.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
I
wild.
didn't know his association with Neil went back that early. I thought it was a little later. So
I think that's the first record he played.
I believe you.
86. And that was also when he's using Simmons pads. So you're hearing all that stuff that sounds like overdubs. It's actually him playing fills on Simmons pads. I mean,
It's weird that the first snare drum backbeat, I was like, oh, that sounds like him.
yeah.
You know?
It's his super tight birch
Yeah.
snare sound.
Well, I don't know what
yeah.
the drum is, but like he's got a way of,
Yeah.
you can just kind of hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
That whole record is
What's the album called?
Landing on Water.
Okay.
It's
I'll have to check that
interesting.
out.
He sounds great on that, man.
Yeah, it's confidence for sure. So that's a weird one. What do we go to next? David Sanborn, back to Throck here.
Oh yeah, this is
Hearsay,
I can talk
Jaw,
about this for-
1994. So we jumped ahead quite a bit.
Okay, so
8 years.
I'm going to talk a whole bunch here.
Go for it.
So again, I was in my this band made basically 2 records in a row. There was a record called Up Front and this record Hearsay, both produced by Marcus Miller. Marcus is all over this stuff, playing bass as well as bass clarinet and other things.
These are great records.
All these great musicians on these albums. Steve's on both records. The first one came out in the early 90s. Might have been 91, 92. This one came out a few years later. So that same summer, when I was playing that amusement park gig in Cincinnati, I was really into the Upfront record. And then I think it might have been the summer before, I was telling Mike this story. I went through this period, because I was in total Dave Weckl mode. I just wanted to play like Dave Weckl. And I heard this Upfront record. And all I wanted to do was try to learn how to play these grooves and make them feel and sound like this, which was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even saying I can do it. But so that whole summer I set up this rack tom on a snare drum stand and a floor tom, a bass drum, snare drum, a couple cymbals, and try to tune like this and get the sound. Now this tune we're going to hear is from the second record, but what I will say about these albums is every song on both albums is just in my opinion, just a complete masterpiece of how to play grooves, how to have a sound,
Totally.
how to not overplay but still sound interesting. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
This is just a groove off of one of the songs off of Hearsay. Which one did I pick?
Jaws.
Okay.
Jaws.
It's in the middle of the record.
So this is from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's the sound.
Man.
And Marcus is
Oh man.
all over that stuff. So good.
There's only one Marcus Miller.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he's back in love with them. The big hi-hats.
And he's the first guy. He's the first guy I saw doing that, playing like these giant hi hats. I remember there was a Peisty ad back in the day. You remember this ad, Lou? It was like an ad. It was like 17-inch pink hi hats,
Yeah.
or it might have been like 30-inch pink ride. I'm like, what? What does that even mean? And this is before like everybody was playing 13s and 14s back then, and some guys were playing 12s.
Yeah.
But like nobody was playing 17-inch hi-hats, and now everybody's playing 17-inch hi-hats, and 18-inch hi-hats, and 16-inch hi-hats. You know, so yeah.
Those are great records.
It's such good music, man, and I can't imagine anybody tackling that any better than he does.
Yep.
Again, he brings like that kind of attitude that you don't always hear in that style of music.
Yeah.
That keeps it really exciting. I don't need to hear anything else. Just his snare drum sound alone.
Yeah.
I'm good. Don't change. So we're going to stick with 1994 and Brecker Brothers, Out of the Loop, Harpoon.
Oh yeah, this is.
I don't know this.
This is a cool record. So the Brecker Brothers, this kind of fusion band, these two brothers, Michael Brecker and Randy Brecker, they had a bunch of records in the late '70s, kind of funk fusion records. All these different drummers. Steve Jordan was on some of that stuff, and Terry Bozzio and Gadd and whoever else I'm forgetting, Harvey Mason.
Yeah, Harvey.
And then Richie Morales, I think, played on some of that stuff. Anyway, so they made two records after a hiatus in the early 90s on GRP. They made this record called Return of the Brecker Brothers, which Dennis Chambers is on the whole record. Sounds amazing. Then they made this record a year or two later called Out of the Loop. And there's a bunch of different drummers on it. Sean Pelton's on it, and Ronnie Holmes is on it. And Steve Jordan's on a couple tunes. And this is in the middle of this tune called Harpoon. This is the second solo. This is the tenor saxophone solo. And Steve just gets he's just playing his funky kind of grooves, but he's kind of getting in there and being a little more active, you know. There's a little more conversation happening with the soloist.
Cool.
This is like 4:15 into Harpoon. Never loses the groove.
Yeah,
Never even leaves it, really.
Yeah, and all that snare drum stuff, you know, that like all the
great
ghost note
sound,
stuff,
man.
and it's like, and the feel, it's like slippery, but it's like so
great.
strong.
It's great,
Every
yeah.
time he hits the bass drum, like that focus of that sound,
I know.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Who's on bass?
James Genus.
Is that James Genus on
Yeah.
that record? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great, man.
So good.
It's pretty killing.
I
don't
got to
know
check that record out.
I don't
That's
know
what
it either. You can tell it's Brecker right away, though.
Oh, yeah.
like
I mean, come on.
instantly.
Both of them.
Throck, we have one more. This was the one that got me the most excited.
Yeah, this one,
I didn't know this existed.
yeah, so, you know, like I said, I became this like uber Steve Jordan fan in the early 90s, and was always looking for things with him playing on it. He made this live recording, concert recording with James Taylor. They recorded it in, I think, May of '98, I believe.
Beacon?
What's that?
The Beacon Theater?
Yeah, the Beacon Theater. We watched that together.
It's great.
So I was on a break when I was touring with Maynard Ferguson's band. I was staying with my brother. And again, 1998 or 99, whenever I saw it, this is pre-YouTube, this is pre-people having iPhones, all this stuff.
You had to buy that stuff.
Yeah, and also,
Or have
like,
cable.
Yeah.
I was staying with my brothers up late one night. They were all in bed. I'm flipping channels, and they aired this on PBS.
Oh, wow.
And I caught maybe 2/3 of it, or the second half. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was
He's
oh my
incredible
God,
on it, yeah.
That's Steve Jordan playing
Yep.
with James Taylor. So I was just freaking out.
My favorite thing on that is when they do Mexico and he plays
yeah.
the cocktail
Oh, yeah.
kid.
Yeah,
It sounds so great on that.
So
Sorry.
I, after I saw it, I was just looking for it forever.
Yeah.
And I finally found it on DVD.
Yeah.
And,
He sounds incredible on that.
there's just this, they play all the hits, they play
All of them.
all these album cuts. Killing band, as he always has. Luis Conti on percussion and
Yep.
Jimmy Johnson on bass.
Jimmy Johnson. Yeah.
So,
Don Grolnick still in the band then?
no, he wasn't on this.
He wasn't?
No. But I'm not sure if this will translate through these speakers, how killing it is. I would just say if you haven't seen this, watch the entire concert.
It's worth it, yeah.
To me, it was life-changing, literally. I just had this feeling seeing this of okay, I can play all these grooves. I can play the notes. I can play, and I was playing fairly well. But I can't do this. I can't do this like this guy does it. Why does it sound so good? Why does it feel so great? Why every time you get the snare drum, it sounds like the best thing I've ever heard?
And he's changing the snare drum every song.
Yeah, to Tex handing him a different snare drum every tune. 3 cymbals,
Yeah.
1 rack tom, 2 floor toms, a hi-hat, and a snare drum.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially a 4-piece kit with an extra floor tom,
Yeah.
which he still kind of rocks at or plays 1 floor tom sometimes. But anyway, on this tune, hopefully it comes through. As soon as he plays the first backbeat on the snare drum, it's like when I was picking stuff to send to Mike to do this podcast, I pulled this up thinking I might want to include it. And I think it's cooler if you watch it in a way too. But it was 11 o'clock at night. I'm watching this on YouTube with headphones on. He hits the first backbeat. I think I just screamed out loud by myself. I was just oh, and then I just kept rewinding it over and over and over. And it's it's so amazing. So let's check it out.
We have to put it in context. James Taylor's drummer had just passed away.
Yeah, Carlos Vega, great drummer.
Right before this. So
Great
he was
drummer.
kind of a last minute.
But it makes you wonder, I'm sure they didn't over-rehearse. I'm sure they rehearsed a little because it was going to be filmed.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure if James Taylor was on, Sony or Columbia, but I think it was, the first DVD release of that label.
Wow.
So
Oh,
it was,
wow.
a big deal for them, the
Interesting.
label.
Yep.
So anyway, let's check it out.
All right.
So we first hear this, there's no drums, and then he'll kind of come in.
You had me jumping ahead 35 seconds. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody line 'em up, line 'em all up. Oh, line 'em up, line 'em all up. Won't you line 'em up, line 'em all up. Yeah, line 'em up, line 'em all up. At that time my heart was all broke. I looked like ashes, smelled like smoke, and I turned away from my loving kind and tried to lead my body and live in my mind. But it's much too much emotion to hold in your hand. It's like waves out on the ocean, they wear away the land. I said line them all, oh line them all. Can't you line them all, oh line them all. Well, I've seen corn in Kansas, and I've seen picket fences and certain cowboy dances. I've I've gone lining up for souls. I've been safely placed in rows. Sure, I know how this goes. Another day goes by, little time machine.
I'm sorry.
It
I
might
was
just
muted.
sound like somebody playing a pop song, but it's so much more than that. Like, I promise you, it's like nobody can do it. And it really made me think about how to play gigs like this. Like I have to play so much less than I had been used to playing, and so much of it is sound.
Totally.
How you touch the drums, dynamics. Thinking about coming from a jazz background, thinking about staying out of people's way. Being
100%.
supportive.
Blending with the band.
Yeah, dynamics, good time, all that stuff, and nobody can do it better.
Yeah.
And that ringy snare is not something that everyone can do.
But it's not offensive.
That's what I mean.
Offensive ringy. It's like good ringy.
It's a ring, but
Totally.
that could easily be a like, hey man, can you put a freaking ring on that? or
Yeah, but
something?
people just, again, this is going to get a little dark right now, but like, guys do that because they can't play.
It's
You
true.
know what I mean? I hate
Touch.
saying that.
No, it's true.
And sure, there is something nice sometimes about a super dead snare drum. It can be really vibey and awesome. But like, you have to learn how to control the drums.
Yeah.
And like, Steve can do that as well as anybody can do it.
And
know?
you are the sound ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, you are the one creating that sound.
Yeah, it's like he uses his left hand as a reverb. He's able to
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
control it.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, in
Yep.
a way, which is
Yep.
so beautiful. We've got two more. They're both mine because I picked more recent stuff. John Mayer Battle Studies, the track Assassin.
Which I was going to pick, but Mike picked this, so I chose something else.
I definitely don't own this record either.
This is killing.
From 2009. I picked this for a couple of reasons. The drum sounds, the parts.
Are you playing the intro and the, like,
I'm playing like verse into the first chorus.
yeah, the chorus has to be in there, but the intro is super dope as well.
So like I have a studio at home and I do a lot of tracks for people, and I'm always trying to like find new ways to make pop songs sound interesting. And what he does in this track is he goes from a small kit to a big kit, and it's just like two characters in a story.
Wow.
And it couldn't be more perfect in my opinion. It's
I
just
agree.
real tight, dry, focused, and then this huge.
Wow.
So it's just amazing, and also the parts are just so bad, so bad.
It's ridiculous.
So I'm going to jump in like 50 seconds in, so you get like the end of the verse into the interlude.
Get gone. Should've turned around and left before the sun came up again. But the sun came up again. Into the morning light to find the day is burning, the curtains and the wine in a little white room. No, I'm not alone. Her head is heavy on me. She's sleeping like a child. What could I do? You get in, you get done, and then you get gone. You never leave a trace to show your face, you get gone. Should've turned around and left before the sun came up again. But the sun came up again. I was a killer, was the best they'd ever seen. I'd steal your heart before you ever heard a thing. I'm an assassin and I had a job to do. Little did I know that girl was an assassin too. Suddenly I'm in.
It's perfection. It's
It's
storytelling, yeah.
So
Man,
good.
the sound, man. What a great sound he gets.
Yeah.
Wow. Man.
Unreal. That's why I still am going to say he's the most important pop rock drummer of the past 45 years. I'm going to stand by it. All right, last one before we send everybody out of here. If you don't know, Steve is now a member of the Rolling Stones. He inherited the seat from the great Charlie Watts after he passed away.
He's officially in the band?
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
He also, I believe, co-produced the new record.
Wow.
He has a long history with Keith Richards and the other guys in the band, and him and Charlie were friends. So it made perfect sense for him to join the band. So I had to pick a tune off of the latest Rolling Stones record from 2023, I believe. The track is called Bite My Head Off. And why I picked this is because Steve does what he does. He honors the seat. He keeps the flavor of Charlie Watts. He's always respecting the sound of the band, but yet he brings his freaking attitude. Even the count off, you're like, damn, he just made the Rolling Stones like go for it. You know, so It's a great record.
Cool.
So this is my final pick, Bite My Head Off. From the beginning, you get to hear Steve yell out.
1, 2.
Here we go.
1, 2.
He's making those old dudes rock.
Wow. Man, he does sound incredible.
What's the album called?
What's the new record? Anyone remember the new
I can figure it out.
Stones record? It is. Oh, it's called Hackney Diamonds.
Okay.
2023.
Wow.
Crush
I gotta
it.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. 10 Reasons to Love Steve Jordan. Any recommendations for anyone that we should check out? There's a bazillion albums.
So many, yeah.
We didn't cover any of the like R&B or pop stuff that he did. Alicia Keys, Sheryl Crow, Mellencamp.
Yeah, that's a good record.
Cutting Heads.
He produced that too.
Wow.
I just listened to a Billy Joel record on the way over here that he makes everyone sound cool.
I was telling him, like, my holy grail kid. Like, I just remember watching
the Yamaha kid.
Yeah.
or anywhere else.
The wood
Yeah.
I
hoops.
was like, man, that.
Yeah.
Man, I was like, holy shit.
I was telling Mike when they released that DVD, I saw like a photo of it in a magazine, like the cover, and I thought like somebody was playing a prank on me. I'm like, Steve Jordan has like an instructional drum DVD? There's no way like this is true. And then I got it upstairs at Waddell's. Like they ordered it for me, and I was like,
Wow.
it's the best day of my life. I don't really mean that, but like it was incredible. I couldn't believe that it existed, you know?
And it might be the best drum DVD ever made,
But it's very,
I
All
think.
that B-roll
it's
on
very like
cities
it's like not typical drum video.
Yeah, it's got some
It's like
art.
Billy Martin's video, like they're not your
Yeah.
normal drum video.
It's
Yeah.
good.
You
The
know?
Groove is Here. Highly recommended.
Oh, it's killing.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, make sure you hit us with a comment or a like, a share, a subscribe. If you're on YouTube, make sure you're getting the notifications for when we drop new episodes. If you're listening to this in audio form, we would love a 5-star rating and some words in the review section. That helps the show get spread to more listeners like you. So again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.